Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Life Paranormal Researchers podcast. I'm your host, Russell Reynolds, and we got a good show tonight. Before we get started, can we bring our guest on and introduce? Let's say hello to everybody in the chat. Hey, Carol Garcia, welcome in. And all 5 viewers that are starting to tune in now, we just went up to 6. Um, we got a good show tonight, good guest. I met this guest at the Warrens Paracon last September. He's a native of Tennessee. He's the founder of SRS Paranormal. Please welcome to the show, Matthew Sorge, founder of SRS Paranormal.
Hey,
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 welcome
Russell, how you
to
doing?
the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. So, tell my audience a little bit about yourselves who don't know who SRS Paranormal is and how you got started.
Yeah. So, my name is Matt Sorge. I'm the founder of SRS Paranormal. My journey into the paranormal is a little bit different, maybe than some of people that find their way into the paranormal world. Up until well into my adult years, I had never had a paranormal experience. I'm a career firefighter. That's what I do for my day job. And one of the things I like to do as a hobby is I like to metal detect for artifacts, especially the Civil War period. So there's this old farmhouse not far from where I live in Johnson City. I actually live in Kingsport, but it's in Johnson City. And I was there, metal detected this property. And to kind of paint the picture for you, if you think of the quintessential horror type house, this dilapidated farmhouse sitting in the middle of a cornfield. That's literally what this was. There's nothing in 8 or 10 acres but this old house. And farmer would keep it fenced off and keep his tractors and things in that area. Well, I was just going along, minding my own business, not believing ghosts at this point, never had an experience. Thought it was really cool that people had these experiences, but I had never had one of my own. And I get a good signal, and I go to recover that target, and I get that really weird feeling like I'm being watched. And I look up at the house, and as plain as I can see you on this screen, I see an elderly woman in the second story of this building that shouldn't be have anybody in it, with the roof caving in, looking back at me. And while I'm looking at her, she vanished right before my very eyes. So I did what any grown man does in that situation. I grabbed my metal detector and my shovel, and I ran to my truck as quick as I could because I had just seen a ghost. So, trying to quantify that and figure out what that was on the way home, I decided, well, you had a busy shift at work last night. Maybe it's just an overactive imagination, lack of sleep, whatever. Well, I used to say I got the courage or the time to go back, but the truth is I got the courage to go back about 6 weeks later, and I had a second experience. I put the first one out of my mind, and again, going along, get another good signal, and behind me, as the sun is setting, a shadow goes past me from my right to my left. I turn around, assuming it's going to be the farmer, but there's nothing for 8 to 10 acres in any direction. So after those two experiences, I knew that there was something else that these experiences and this phenomena is that people have. And I dove headlong into it, led to founding a team, and now, well, almost 20 years later, and hundreds of investigations throughout the country, some of the most notorious haunted locations, as well as residential cases. Our team does public events. In fact, they're actually doing one tonight. I'm not there because I wanted to do this show. But we do 10 or 15 nights a year of public events. So we do a lot of this. It's anywhere from 20, 30 investigations at least, a minimum a year for us. So I just dove headlong into that, and that's kind of how I got my start, and kind of where it went from there.
Awesome. And I know you said you're a gifted medium as well.
Yeah, so that's what's really crazy. For my journey, when I started, I was a skeptic because I'd had these two experiences that I just told you about that I couldn't explain, which led to studying ancient civilizations and anything I could to try and figure out what some of this stuff is. And I went for many, many years with not really being anything but into the equipment and trying to get those answers through using just equipment. Well, in 2014, I met Dr. Rhonda Claudel, who is our lead psychic medium. She's the one that owns the Nickerson Sneed Bread and Breakfast in Glade Spring, Virginia, which is where our team is based out of. And she introduced me to the Victorian era methods, the seances, the Ouija boards, dowsing rods, pendulums, all of those old school things. So we started working with her to try and use both the equipment and the mediumship and those different things to kind of cross validate or to get secondary or tertiary validations. And it was great because we could understand what we were getting on the equipment based on what she was connecting to, or we could, validate what she was connecting to with equipment and with EVPs and those sort of things. And as time went on, I started to become more and more sensitive to the environment. And she kept telling me that you need to pursue this. You've got these abilities. You need to pursue it. And I kept saying, no, I don't. No, I don't. Well, then I had an aha moment. We were on a case and a place here in Tennessee, one of the big local haunts down here, and I had an aha moment where I made a full connection and inadvertently brought over a bunch of information that was relevant to the case. So from that point on, the next 5 years, I really started developing the mediumship ability. I worked with her for quite a while, developing my skills, and then I worked with Medium Sky Ray for about a year and a half. And then after that, I actually studied under James von Prague for 6 months, and got my first full mediumship, I guess, certification, if you want to call it that, after working with him for 6 months.
Awesome. So how does that work? Like if you're getting called out to a fire, does your abilities kick in
Yeah,
quite a
so that was the biggest challenge, was trying to figure out how to turn off my ability to connect with spirit when I work, and I had to really learn how to do that. So I will really work hard to close myself off when I go to work so that I don't automatically start connecting to things. And then, when I'm working for paranormal, I'll spend a day or two getting my energy right and getting myself where I can read and do galleries if we're doing a gallery reading or if we're working cases.
Yeah, because I know that's gotta be kinda hard, especially if you're going into a burning building and there's possibly somebody that's already passed away from smoke or
Mhm.
whatever, their spirit's just coming out with you with them abilities, you probably be able to pick up on it or they're gonna come to you.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing for and I think most mediums would agree with this. We pick and choose how we connect and who we connect with. So you're aware of spirit all the time, but you don't have to bring that connection. Sometimes they don't want that connection. I've always said in the years that I've been in the paranormal and having worked with many other mediums over the years now, even before I started doing that side of it myself, you can put 4 or 5 of the best mediums on the planet in the room. They may not all get the exact same things. That's why I think it's really fascinating when, as mediums, we work together. We can get more of the information, and that's kind of what we've started doing on my team. Myself and Tori Starnes, another one of our mediums, and Rhonda, we work together on cases a lot because we each get pieces of the puzzle and we get a bigger picture of the puzzle. So I guess to go back and answer that question, I think we do have the ability to really dial it in or dial it back if we need to. It's about controlling that energy.
Right. Yeah, I have also medium abilities as well, and I've learned how to close mine off. Like when we're doing an investigation, I got my team there. I kind of shut mine down a little bit because I'm worried about my team's safety, and
Right.
my dad's
Totally
got
get that. Yep.
he's got the abilities too, and so I let him just hone in on his and let him interview the clients and stuff like that.
But so I mean, yeah, so you know firsthand, you really can. You can choose to dial it back or tune it up if you need to. So,
Yep, and mine started from a near-death experience, so did my dad.
oh wow,
Yeah, he passed away from a car accident back in the '70s and came back, and I passed away at 12 years old from a seizure and came back.
wow. So the NDE, not I know this is your show, and I feel like I'm taking an
Oh, that's
interview
fine.
shot here at you. And I don't mean to do that, but it's
Oh,
fascinating because
that's fine.
the NDE phenomena is something that I also have not me personally, but my wife a couple of years ago was battling breast cancer, and she had an NDE, and immediately following her NDE, because she literally died in the bathroom 2 rooms over from me, and I was getting ready to start CPR, and we were on the phone with 911. My daughter was, and she came back, and when she did, she was totally different after that. She was wide open, and where I had already started into understanding my gifts and abilities, I knew that she went from nothing to wide open. I mean, I spent 5 years developing that, and she, like you, the switch was turned on, and it was wild when that happened to her. And she's since learned to dial that back. She doesn't work as a medium, but she's really embraced that sensitivity and learned to balance the two. So, yeah, the NDE phenomena is really it's quite wild how enlightenment seems to come with that experience.
Yeah, it's neat, especially when you can actually stand there and tell an owner of a house that, "Hey, there's some you're watching something up in that window," and then they snap a picture of it, and it shows up in their camera.
Absolutely. Yep. Where you can bring those validating messages over for families. That's what started happening to us at Public so much, where we now have so many of us that have abilities. We end up usually dealing with people's spirits a lot more than we do with the location spirits because we end up bringing over so many messages. So it's
Right.
very validating as a medium when you get to do that. It's very rewarding.
You guys do a lot of Estes methods too as
We
well?
do. Yes, we absolutely do. Sometimes double Estes, we sure do.
Those are actually interesting when you do double Estes. We did one at an event at a courthouse, and, one team was in the courthouse doing an Estes, and my team, we were in the library doing one, and we were actually picking up the exact same thing during
That's
Estes.
awesome when you have that, right? Yep. That's
Yep,
very validating. Yeah.
and the tour guys, the history ones that run the museum, they were running back and forth listening, and they were like, "Yeah, they're coinciding with each other."
Yep, that's super validating. I love when that happens. It's like getting a early Christmas present because we always have those aha moments in paranormal, but you always have to do that due diligence and try to explain things and make sure that it's actually valid. And when you have that double validation where you have it happening in two groups of people at the same time, we experience that same phenomenon a lot too, where we're divided up in teams and we'll get part of something and they'll get the same thing later, or we'll get it simultaneously on dowsing rods in a different area while we're also getting it on a box. So yeah, we do a lot of that as well.
Have you guys tried the human pendulum yet?
Yeah, actually, the my wife likes to do the human pendulum pretty good. The only thing the only thing with the human pendulum is as long as the participants are being genuine about what they're doing and not trying. And it's obvious if same thing with rods. If somebody's forcing answers, that becomes very obvious.
Yeah.
Um, as long as the people are being genuine, I think it's a really interesting phenomena to watch play out in front of you, especially when you have somebody like we actually just did it 2 nights ago, actually night before last, so last night I guess, and then last week we did it as well at one of our other events, and we had a guy that was pretty much a skeptic and he didn't believe that you could feel energy and all those things, and we put him in that pendulum role, and he got kind of freaked out a little bit because he was like, that I didn't do that. I'm not moving myself move. And he kind of responded in that kind of like shock of like this is really happening. So he left a believer at the end of the night. So that was really cool.
That's always fun when you can make a skeptic a believer.
Absolutely.
The first time I've seen it done was at Missouri State with, Next of Kin Paranormal. We're at the Warren's Paracon. I don't know if you got to meet Joe and
I,
Dom.
no, I did not.
They Get Haunted did an event out here last year with Nesper
Right.
prison, and we were doing the human pendulum down in 3D, and that was the first time I've ever seen it done, and it come out pretty good results. We were communicating with a woman down there that was housed in there,
Very cool.
and the funny part of it is she actually remembered me from being there a few years ago,
Wow.
and she wanted to talk to me,
Very cool.
and they ended up catching her on in a picture. One of the ladies went stood by the cell, and he showed up in the picture right next to her.
So, do you, I mean, in your opinion, do you think, and I know how I feel about this, I'll be curious to see what you think. The more you do this, right, the more you investigate places, the more you spend time in the paranormal world, you tend to have more interactions, even with the same spirits. And I do think they almost wait and remember you to come back, and they get almost kind of excited when they do. Hello, Jennifer. How are you? So yeah, I mean, I think they do. I think they actually do. They're like, hey, look, it's Russell. Hey,
Yeah.
it's Matt. Do you
Yep.
get your name a lot when you do Spirit Box?
Yeah, quite a
Yeah, me
bit.
too.
Uh, like Greg Koss, he's one of our podcasters on here. He does a show called When Spirit Connect, and they do a live Estes method
Oh, cool.
from different people from different states, and they've gotten my name called on the Spirit Box.
Very cool. I'll have to check that out. So they actually do like different locations and do it live.
They do it right through the podcast. They'll have
That's
different
cool.
people on doing Estes, and they'll ask questions, and it's a pretty interesting show what they come up with, especially that night they called my name and said I could help, so there was a spirit that I'm supposed to help.
Love it. That's awesome.
KD he does a session where it's that AI text to type.
Hmm.
He'll run that through the spirit box
Wow, that's
and
cool.
it types out. And he had it one morning he was doing it early in the morning, so I tuned in and it typed out my whole name, first and last.
Very cool.
So I do get called quite a bit. I get cussed at quite a bit on spirit boxes,
Yep, me too. I get a lot of those heavy ones.
especially in residential because they know why you're there and what you're there for.
They don't want you to be there. Yep.
Yep. So they know the homeowner called you in and they're afraid you're going to get rid of them. So
And it's also, I always think it's interesting too when you have those moments where you do have a lot of the profanities come through. It usually people will be surprised at that because they can't dismiss it as radio,
yeah,
because that's obviously not being broadcast on any of the local radio stations, right?
where we use like one of KD's boxes, his is in reverse. So it switches reverse.
So he's reverse. Yep.
But
I got one of his boxes. We use a lot of JW Prather's boxes. Is a lot
okay.
of the boxes we have.
Yeah, KD's reverse sweep ink box that and it runs in shortwave, so
Oh wow.
you don't get radio coming through it.
Right. You don't get to bleed over. Right.
Yep. And it works pretty good. We've used it several locations and we've gotten good results on them. And I know he takes them and tests them in a cave where you won't
Very. Yeah.
get ghost signals. So they're pretty good boxes. He actually made one we tried out called the Wiseman, where your body's the actual antenna. You grab a hold of the two bolts.
So you're putting your energy into it. Yeah, like the direct link style stuff. Yeah,
Yep.
it's really cool. Yep. It's
We use
almost becomes like a digital Ouija board in a sense, or because you're putting your energy in it like you do a planchette or rods or a pendulum.
we tried that with the shadow doll of the Nesper shadow doll, and they had it at the prison. We did a session with her, and she came across that one.
Great. Yeah.
And then the reverse sweep ink box at the prison, we got Amy's name across there from Amy's script because she was coming in 2 weeks after we were there.
See, that's so validating when you get stuff like that. I mean, because there's no other explanation for that,
No, we couldn't explain it or debunk it, and
for sure.
I don't know if you guys ever been out to Missouri State yet.
Not yet. Most of the stuff we've done is up the eastern seaboard and down here in the south areas where most of now some of my team members have done stuff out west, but we've not made it to Missouri yet. Indiana is about as far, I guess, Midwest as we've made it so far.
Yeah, if you do make it out, Missouri State's definitely a good active place. I'll give you
Definitely
a
on the
little
list.
I'll give you a little hint though. Send all the women up to the women's part of the prison.
We can definitely do that.
Don't let men go up there. You won't get nothing.
Stops. Yep.
Yep, it'll be quiet up there.
Yep, that's yeah. I think you raised another really interesting or another good point too. Is that's why I think it's really good when teams have a mix of men and women for that very reason. Because sometimes that energy just will completely change the course of the investigation. We even find sometimes too large of a group in a room. Like if we have four people, it's sometimes too much. Hey, go sisters.
Hey, go sisters, welcome in. But yeah, the dungeon cells aren't. They're pretty active too. We actually got a woman on camera and digital recorder saying hello down there, and they never housed women down there.
Wow, that's interesting.
They only housed one guy down there, JB the Firebug, for 18 years. He ended up getting out, and somebody wrote a book for him because he was blind. But he was thrown down there for setting the prison on fire.
So, how many years was Missouri State actually in commission?
It was built in the 1800s, and I think it shut down in like 2004.
Oh wow! So they had a long history.
Yep, and it's the most violent, bloodiest 47 acres.
It's a lot of energy left over.
Yeah, I mean between inmates getting stabbed and guards, and there was one story that Jenny, the head tour guide that does the ghost tours, and Diana was telling us that this one guard stood there while an inmate got stabbed to death, and they were only armed with a whistle and a billy club, and that was it.
That's got to be crazy. And that's when you go into prisons, it's a different vibe. It's a totally different type of energy than if you go to say a hospital or an orphanage. I mean, there's definitely a different energy signature when you go into those places.
Yeah, Greg, it was one badass prison. I walked out of there with a burn bruise on my arm. It looked like someone had taken a cigarette and poked me
You
right here.
got you right there. Wow. Yeah, we've done Brushy Mountain, which is a maximum security prison that's here in East Tennessee. We've done it 4 times. We're getting ready to go back in April. My team is, and I'm going with another group. Um, you know, we're going back there in April, so that'll be my 5th time at Brushy. So I enjoy the prisons. It's a totally different experience each time you go.
My dad, he got grabbed in the museum.
Hmm.
He went up to that. They got a mannequin guard there in a guard uniform. He shook his hand and like grabbed him right here by the
Grab his
arm.
arm. Wow.
He had finger bruises on his arm.
Yeah, I got shoved out of a supermax cell down there at Brushy. I was standing in the doorway, and I actually got physically shoved out of the actual cell door.
Mm,
So it's different energy at prisons. It's
it sure
different
is.
experience.
Well, we were with it the first time we went. We were with another team, and my dad had told this girl we went to dinner with them, and he said to her, "You're going to get touched tonight." Well, we were in cell house 4, which was the black part of the prison where they housed Sonny Liston, and she kept seeing a shadow darting in and out of the cells up on the catwalk. So I went up there, check it out by myself, and they stayed down on the floor. So I started pacing the catwalk like a guard, and I got right above them, and I hear her say, "God damn it, I got grabbed."
Huh.
I said to her, I said, "Don't get alarmed. You're a woman in a black cell house." And she was also a black girl. And I said to them, they hadn't seen women in years.
That's
So,
what I was going to say. It's been a long time since I've seen a woman.
so
Mm,
to them, you're good looking. They're gonna come and
yep.
interact with you more than they will myself and any of the other men that are with us.
absolutely they'll get their hair pulled, they'll get touched. A lot of times, same experience we've had. Women in prison investigations, they'll be the first ones to usually be grabbed or touched.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting. We did a when Nesper was there, we did a Estes method down in the same cell that Dan did for the event, and we decided not to use a spirit box. We decided to tap into our abilities, and I was picking up on a man from cell number 20. I kept getting the number 20. So I talked to Wade about it. Wade says, "Yeah, that's where I housed all Nesper's things was in cell number 20, and that man was not happy."
Wow. Yeah, he was mad because the stuff was in his cell.
Yep. So
And that makes sense. Yeah.
he went down to the dungeon to get away from everybody,
Yeah,
and I ended up picking up on JB, the firebug, and he's very hard to connect to. He doesn't really communicate.
doesn't like to. Yep. So the spirit box work pretty good at Missouri because at Brushy they don't hardly work at all. I don't no matter what brand you bring, they just don't seem to like them. They don't. They just don't connect with them.
We were using one of KD's boxes, the reverse sweep, and then his Inkbox S there, and then the Wiseman, and then first time we went, we were using Necrophonic, and they were also using Necrophonic that night of the event up in the women's prison, and they were talking to a woman who was molested by a guard,
Oh man.
and they were doing using the boost EVP,
Hmm.
and they were both saying the same thing as Necrophonic.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we've just at the it seems that well, Brushy in particular we've just not had luck using boxes there. When we're talking to End of the Line Paranormal, the group that actually runs the paranormal stuff there, they just don't get good luck down there with the spirit boxes. So I started kind of wondering if maybe it was because it reminded them of like the walkie-talkie sound,
That
if
could
maybe
be, yeah, with
that's what it was. But what we did get a lot of interaction with, this was kind of cool, and we were using we brought like a one of the guys brought what was like a not a real one, but like the billy clubs like they would have carried. And he was going down the cell doors and just wrecking that thing. Well, we got a disembodied guy yelling on the cells above us, and then we heard the cell door slam shut. So that was a really cool experience that we captured there. Then it was triggered by that kind of role playing type, interaction.
yeah. I mean, we even at Waverly, we had good response on the spirit box down like on the first floor lobby, but anywhere else we didn't really get anything on the spirit box.
Waverly's definitely on my list too. We've tried to go twice, and both times something happened that we couldn't go. So we've been trying to get there for years. We are doing Trans Allegheny this year, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, Waverly's an awesome place. It lives up to its name. I had some good personal experiences as well as evidence out of there. I actually seen the creeper of Waverly.
No, I've heard stories. I've seen some evidence of that.
Yeah,
So you actually saw it, huh?
yep, him and I were on the outer catwalk staring at each other, and it just crawled across the floor and just stayed right there for a minute. I had the camera pointed at it, and I had one of my members that were with me. I was like, "Keep the camera pointed at it. I'm gonna head towards it." Fast as I got down there, it crawled up over the outer wall and went down to the next
Gone.
floor.
Wow.
And never did see it again that night. But fourth floor surgery room, we caught two women screaming, and we all heard it with our own ears coming from the hallway. So we were with another team that invited us, and I said, "Text that other team, find out where they're at." They were up on the fifth floor on the other side of the building on the roof doing an
Nowhere near there.
and that's about the same time I got pinned to the surgery table.
Oh wow.
We were role playing, kind of playing like I was sick and I was coughing, and they were yelling, "We need a doctor in here. We're gonna lose them." And And right when I
Well,
heard that the motion light kicked on and I heard that scream, I went to sit up and I couldn't move. It was like I was being restrained.
it's pretty cool when you start adding that energy back into the environment. I think the role playing thing is a real effective method to stir things up, especially when you're not getting a lot of stuff happening.
Do you guys try music too as well?
Yeah, we've tried music from the time different time periods. Like if we know there's stories of history. I mean, we have two historians, actual degree historians on the team, so they'll do a deep dive for us. Now, the mediums we go in blind. We don't know anything about the
Right.
locations because we don't want to. We want to see what we get, but they'll do a deep dive and get a lot of stuff. So the rest of the researchers will sometimes use like the Singapore method, where they'll use music. We'll put the music out even through boxes, so it goes into that format. Sometimes we do some experiments involving that and different sound frequencies like the solfeggio frequencies, and see if we can stir things up that way too.
Awesome. Yeah, we did that at a abandoned hotel we were investigating in the ballroom. I started playing some old 1920s and 30s ballroom music, and my headlamp kept turning on and off.
Wanting
I
to dance? He was
Yep,
looking for
I
a dance partner.
turn it, turn it back off. We had sound activated motion lights that kept going on and off in the hallway.
Yeah, I think that's another great method because you're it's something that they resonate with from their time period, or potentially a time period related to a location.
And that place, we've heard the piano play on its own. Now
That's neat.
the piano's rotted, so the keys don't really work. They don't play anymore.
So that shouldn't be happening. Yeah, right.
And well, something decided it wanted to mess with my father that first night we were there. He watches our DVR cameras, and we walked in, and it's summer night. I mean, it's hot out. Missouri gets to be 100 degrees,
Oof.
and it was hot. We were all in t-shirts. We walked in that room, and it felt like the temperature dropped to like 30 degrees. You could see your breath. My dad was freezing. We had to put blankets on him, put a lamp on him to warm him up, and
Yeah.
something
So you
just wanted to mess with him. And I told it to get away, and it didn't have permission, and it finally backed off.
backed off.
But yeah, that hotel was pretty active. We spent the night in there one night. Rest of my team decided they wanted to go to a fancy hotel. My dad and I, we're gonna sleep in here tonight.
Yeah, just get the whole feeling, right? The whole experience.
Yep. And she had a little storefront with a couch and a chair, so he was in the chair, I was on the couch. There's no power, there's no water, so we had a generator running that was running the cameras. So about 3 in the morning, the generator runs out of gas. Lights go out, cameras go out. I start
Really
nodding.
went dark.
Up. I started nodding off. My dad goes, "Hey, wake up!" Like what? Look in the doorway, and here's this big 6'5" black shadow figure standing there staring at us,
Wow.
and never did anything. Just stood there and stared at us.
Probably just curious what you were doing hanging out.
Well, we think it might have been the former owner because he was a big, burly German guy that was about 6'5", and
Oh,
he would wrestle and everything for charity, and he loved that hotel, so he was, and we think it was probably him just checking on his guests to make sure we're all right because the power
yeah.
went.
Yeah, kind of doing what he did when he was alive,
Yep.
following that same routine.
And this man was accused of being associated with the mob, and he had a speakeasy in the basement of the hotel, and he was bootlegging moonshine.
So he was a character.
Yep, we found his moonshine stash
Oh, cool.
down there. It's down in the basement down there. We tried to see how strong it was. We took a lighter to it. It wouldn't even ignite.
It wouldn't ignite. So old, I guess.
Yep. Supposedly, there's his bootleg truck is buried in the floor down in the basement somewhere.
Yeah, I love when you get all that kind of context of history, those layers, right? I mean, it's like those locations can have so many different things that happened there. You just never know which layer you're going to tap into on any given night or any given time that you're investigating the place.
And Your Harry Truman supposedly stayed there, and Pretty Boy Floyd,
Oh wow,
which you guys share the same inmate at Brushy Mountain that we did here in Missouri. That
James Earl Ray.
Yep, he was
Yep,
out. He escaped from Missouri
yep.
and then went and assassinated Martin Luther King, and then they caught
And
him, put him in Brushy Mountain.
put him in Brushy Mountain. Yep, which he escaped from twice and was recaptured both times. He escaped there.
Did
In
he
fact,
die? Did he die in Brushy Mountain?
I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but I vaguely remember that being the case. I honestly can't say for sure, but I do think he did. I do know though or interesting fact that when his last escape, the one that he was out of the prison for like 70 some hours, they before they actually caught him and brought him back, they actually do a marathon race through the woods now, right around that area. It's been for like the last 12 or so years. They actually do a race, and it's basically the area that he was in, and that's sort of what it's about. Is it's a charity race that's done, and it's based on his trail through the woods that he trekked through when he escaped that 72 hours and hid in those mountains.
Especially if his spirit's reliving that and they're doing that, it's
He
probably
he,
going to his energy.
he probably thinks they're chasing him again.
Probably.
They're out there hunting him again. But yeah, Brushy's it's had some really cool history. Over 2,000 deaths occurred at Brushy in its time, from a variety of different things. It actually could be more than that, but I know it's somewhere around 2,000 or 2,000 plus documented deaths.
Oh wow.
And and none of those because they weren't a lethal, electric chair or any of that because they were actually taken to Nashville for executions. So
Okay.
they weren't executions; it was just other things. It was murders, it was disease outbreaks, and it opened in 1899. It was actually built by the original prison was actually built by the prisoners. There's a wooden structure, and then that one actually was torched during a fight that happened between the local mine workers and the prisoners because the state started using the prisoners to mine coal from the mountains. So they would take the ones in the daytime; they would be in the mine for 12 hours, and then they would take the ones that were in the cells out, and they'd go into the mines for 12 hours. So they were able to double
Right.
occupy the prison and then also work the coal, and they'd work those guys 7 days a week. They actually had a post. It's called the whipping post. That's in the courtyard, and if they didn't meet their quotas or if they misbehaved in the prison, they'd be taken down to the whipping post, and they would beat them at the whipping post. So there's a lot of heavy stuff that happened too in the earlier years of that prison.
Mhm.
There's a couple of race riots that happened, over the course of time there as well at the prison. So this it's a really wild um, prison with a lot of crazy history. The structure is actually built like an upside down cross, and that was actually to mock the prisoners that had faith. So kind of a lot of weird history.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and it sounds similar to like Missouri State because Missouri State they had the inmates actually help build the gas chamber.
Wow, where they would eventually be.
Yep. And
Well, that's pretty dark.
yeah, there's actual bricks that they put in the walkway that's got the prisoners' names on them
Wow.
going down to the gas chamber. Hey, Kimmy, welcome in. But yeah, and the gas chamber's pretty active too there at Missouri State. You can actually go in there and sit in the chairs that they sat in.
Do you know how many people were actually put to death
Uh,
at the gas chamber?
I think there was probably over 50 or 60.
Wow.
There was also a man and woman executed together. They were boyfriend and girlfriend. They were accused of kidnapping and murdering a young kid. They were executed in there.
Together. Wow.
And there were several young ones that were executed in there that were only like in their early 20s.
Somebody's talking about that. I'm sorry, I was reading the comments. Somebody's talking about the actual race. So it's actually 72 hours race. I didn't realize that. That's pretty cool. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just happened to notice that, and
Yep,
that's interesting because I knew about the race, but I didn't realize it was a straight that they're replicating the actual timing was out. That's pretty cool.
that's got to be an interesting race.
Yeah, it's tough terrain. I mean, it's mountainous. It's that's a so if you when you drive into the town where the prison is, you actually drive through the neighborhood and then you come right up to the prison, and it sits in a valley. It's surrounded on three sides by mountains. So that's why they called the end of the line. It was where the worst of the worst. They couldn't make it even other prisons. They would be transferred to Bresci, and it was considered unescapable. It was the Alcatraz of the South, and it was because when they got there, they didn't know there was literally a town right on the other side of those mountains. They thought they were somewhere in the middle of nowhere because they were
Right.
brought in at night. They didn't know what was there, and then they go out into the yard, and it's nothing but mountains and woods in all directions. So they believe they were really really far back in the woods.
And have you guys investigated your shrine, haven't you?
Yes.
I know
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
there's a lot of dark history there from what I've
Yeah, so the Ura Shrine is a really unique place. It is a place that is, I guess, the way I would describe it is it's a place between worlds in a sense. Everything is welcome there. So things light and dark are welcome there. There's no this can't be there or that can't be there. It's really a place that is about balance, and it's about keeping that balance between light and dark, yin and yang, if you will. There's a lot of really dark artifacts there, a lot of artifacts that maybe don't play well with the people, and they've had experience at homes, or they've been brought to Rick, the owner of the shrine. They've been brought there because they need to be at a place like that. So there's haunted dolls, there's artifacts that were used in voodoo rituals. There's a Papa Legba coconut there, a headstone from a local witch that the family wanted the headstone taken down because people were coming and doing rituals at her grave. There's a Ouija board that was owned by a serial killer, Nathaniel White, I believe was his name. He was a serial killer that was the Ouija board that he used. So there's a lot of really interesting artifacts also housed there amongst what the shrine is itself, which is, like I said, it's a place of balance.
Yeah, I know Jimmy talks about it from Outlaw Paranormal quite a bit, and I think he took his coffin up there that he has.
He did. Yep. It's out in the scrying room where the mirrors are, so you can lay in a coffin and scry, which is pretty cool.
Have you ever tried that mirror scrying?
I have. I've done mirror scrying. It's pretty trippy. It's a cool experience. Stuff just starts to come in around you in the mirrors. It's to
Mhm.
me in my mind, and I don't know if this is accurate, but in my mind, the way it feels is like the mirror becomes that opening. They say they're portals anyway, but when
Yep.
you scry, it almost really does take that on because you will literally start to see figures and faces and things start to come in to that. And then, of course, as a medium, you can connect to those and you can start pulling that energy over and actually really connecting with it. Um, but that's the shrine. I think another way to describe that too is a lot of places we go to in the paranormal world are places that were. The shrine is a place that is. So it's not about its past. It's not about a haunting or about having, these spirits that are attached there. It's about what the place is, and it's about things that are there, and every type of practice is welcome there. So there's literally been all different types of magical practices and religious practices and things that have happened there. So you add all that energy in, and you have a very unique environment. And it's a very interesting place to spend time, to say the least. One of my favorite locations.
Especially with all them artifacts there too, and you got so many different energies. You got the darker stuff, lighter
Yeah,
stuff. So that it's got to be pretty interesting, probably overwhelming, especially to a medium that walks in there with all that energy bouncing around.
yeah. I mean, it's weird. I feel very comfortable there. I feel very welcome there. And actually, I go there once a week. I'm part of a weekly group there, and I spend time at the shrine all the time. And I feel very happy there. It's a place that really makes me feel just at peace.
Mm.
It's if I try to connect with the things that are there, there are rules. And when I say by that, there are rules for the things that are there. It's a place where you can interact and you can interact in a way that you normally can't. The veil really is thinner there by design. It's designed for spirit to be able to connect with the living. That's really the emphasis of what it is. So for me, I find it very welcoming. I find it to be a place that I like spending time at. I don't. It's not dark. It's not heavy. It's not those things to me.
Right.
But I could see how for somebody who's not there and doesn't understand the complexity of it or doesn't understand that what I just explained from having spent time there, yeah, it is because the first time I went, it was like stepping literally like if you opened a space between our world and theirs, you're like standing in the center of it and like I can go here or I can go there and it's all around me. So yes, initially it's very overwhelming, but as you spend time there, it becomes something you become more comfortable with.
Plus, especially like your new investigators that are new to the field that don't really
Yeah,
understand it yet, that aren't seasoned.
exactly. So, they don't allow people to go to the shrine that are not experienced, established teams. So for teams that want to come visit the shrine, Rick actually, the guy that owns the shrine, he actually works with the Tennessee Shadow Chasers, and they're the ones that book any teams that want to come. And it has to be teams that are established and that have experience and are experienced investigators, because the shrine is not a place for people who are not experienced. It's definitely not because I mean there are some serious artifacts there and some serious things there. So you need to know what you're doing when you go to a place like that for sure.
Yeah, that'd be like stepping into the Warrens Occult Museum and
Exactly. Yep. You wouldn't just want anybody going in there and investigating because they can stir stuff up that then Rick would have to deal with that, or in the case of the Warren Museum, they would have to come in then and deal with what gets stirred up. So
I think that's what a lot of people do, like these newer ones that want to thrill seek for that. They go in there and they want to stir it up and see what they can see, and then they don't
yep.
realize what happens afterwards, the aftermath of it.
That's that saying, F around and find out. Sometimes it's not a good idea, if you depend on where you are, right?
Yep. I mean, that's like Annabelle, what she can do.
Yeah. Yeah, you can feel that energy when you just stand. Like when they had her on display at the event, both one in Connecticut I went to and the one here. I mean, you could feel that energy just walking in the room. There were some other artifacts that they had. I'll go back to something on a shrine in a minute, but you brought up the cult museum. I don't know what it was, but they had a one artifact at the when I was in Connecticut on display, and you may be familiar with it. It looked like it was an African carved statue. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
about 3 foot tall. That whatever that was the strongest thing when I walked into the convention center. I told my wife, I was like, I don't know what's behind that curtain, but there's something behind that curtain. She goes, well, it's probably Annabelle. I'm like, no, there's something in there that's weird. I mean, it's different. And when I walked through the museum, it like stopped me in my tracks when I got within like 5 foot of it because the energy coming off that thing was like it was like pit of your stomach, like woo, like one of those, like okay, I gotta respect this and stop for a minute. So yeah, so there's something to artifacts like that for
Was
sure.
that was it the it was in gray color and it kinda had, like, these pointed spears that
Yes, yes. I'm
that's
look, I'm getting goosebumps just you talking about it, and it has those like horns that come up
yep,
in gray. I read the thing and I don't remember the details, but
the Sandy Hook idol.
I couldn't even finish reading the rest of it because I was like, okay, I'm out. Like I got to get away from this
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, that Ed found that in the woods. It was used by demonic worshippers for
Hmm.
ritual. They left it was up on a rock, and Ed found it in the woods. But it was an actual deer hunter that found it and brought it to Ed's attention,
Wow.
and Ed knew that didn't belong there, and apparently they seen this guy in a black robe that's supposedly attached to it, who was the head Satanist.
That was doing the ritual stuff up there.
Yep. And
Yeah,
Ed ended up with it. Yeah, that thing does give off some I felt it too.
man.
And that was
That's the one thing in that whole thing that like just stopped me from it. I was like, wow, there was some other stuff I didn't really pick anything off of, which doesn't mean there wasn't anything to them. I just didn't connect to it. But that stopped me in my track. I mean, I felt it when I walked past the curtain and didn't even know it was on the other side because it was so strong.
yeah, that one was that was the first time I saw the Sandy Hook idol without seeing it on video.
Definitely a legit artifact for sure.
And one of my friends, they did a lidar reading on it. They caught a figure off of it.
Oh wow. That's cool. Did they have it posted anywhere? I'd love to see that. That's pretty
Uh,
neat.
I don't think so. I don't think they posted it.
It's a shame because I'd love to see that. Because I mean, I'm telling you, that thing literally made every hair on my head stand up. It was that electricity of like, man, that's just strong, heavy artifact for sure.
Well, I know Annabelle, if you look her in the eyes, you will connect to her telepathically.
I can see that.
I watched one of Ed's old videos, and the camera zoomed in on Annabelle, and I made the mistake to keep watching it, and I ended up seeing Annabelle when I went to sleep that night.
Wow.
And when we got there and we were walking to the museum, we were in line. Annabelle was like, "We meet again."
I'm like, no,
Like, nope, you're not getting to me this time.
no, not doing that again. Yeah, I mean, you got to respect that stuff. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, you've got to respect. I always tell people, even if they're skeptics or you don't believe or you think it's hinky or whatever, still be respectful because I mean, it's
Yeah.
really that you don't want to screw around with this stuff and then find out the hard way.
Yep.
We there are legitimate documented stories where people have done just that and really paid a big price for it. So you got to be respectful for sure.
I've
But
seen
oh, go
possession.
ahead.
I've seen possession from stuff, and it's not
It's
fun to see what people go through.
Yeah, it's a real thing that wrecks lives, not just the person, often just the person that's experiencing it directly, but the family around them is usually impacted heavily by those type of things. So it's definitely something to take serious.
I've seen people's eyes roll in the back of their heads. I watched an upside down cross get scratched in somebody's neck.
Wild stuff. Yep. I mean, that's pure evil stuff there. Jumping back to the shrine for just 1 minute, I wanted to mention that we are having the event there. So Smoky Mountain Terror is a pretty big horror con that's happening here in our hometown. This is its third year. A lot of great guests. So if anybody's in the area, make sure you come to Smoky Mountain Terror. But if you want to experience the Euro Shrine and you're not an experienced team, this be your one, probably your only chances to ever do that. Because Outlaw Paranormal and us are hosting a ghost hunt event there. And there's also an earlier event for witches and people that are into the witchcraft stuff that can go to the shrine for that first. And then we'll be doing the paranormal event later that evening from 9 to midnight on both Friday and Saturday night. So that's an opportunity for people to experience the shrine that normally wouldn't get that opportunity.
And I know we're planning on coming out, so
Fantastic.
Jimmy invited us to the shrine as well. So
Yep, you'll love it. You'll really. It's a cool place. I'm glad you're going to get to see it.
yeah, I hear Jimmy talk about it all the time. So it's right on one of my lists to investigate.
Yeah, you'll definitely like it. There's very I would say there's probably not another place quite like it that you'll find for
I,
sure.
I was looking at pictures of it, and next week I will have Rick, the owner of the shrine, on. He's my guest next
Excellent,
with Shadow Chasers.
excellent. Yep, that'll be a good show. Rick is loves to tell stories. He's a great guy, and you'll enjoy him for sure.
And I'm looking forward to that. Hear some of the history of the shrine. And have you guys done anything like in the Smoky Mountains, in the woods, or anything like that? Investigate anything?
No, not in the Smokies per se. We don't do a lot of stuff in the woods. I mean, some of our team is into the cryptids and that sort of stuff. But honestly, most of our stuff has been mostly residential work and traveling to these big haunted locations. We didn't do residential very early on, and this is a personal thing. I'm not saying that people shouldn't do it, but I do think if you're going to do residential work, you really should have a solid grasp of what you're
Yep.
doing because the reason we got into doing residential cases was people had bad experiences. They had inexperienced people come in, and then we had to come in and kind of clean up messes. That's how we got into residential work. Residential work we treat very differently than we do our big research cases, or even if we're working, other stuff from the mediumship side, whether missing persons or whatever. We treat that, each thing is a little bit different. With residential cases, the process for us starts with our case manager will reach out to the client that's contacted us. We have a 60-question questionnaire that we go through with them, and it goes through everything from the history to the experiences, drug and alcohol abuse, mental illness. All of those things are heavily looked at before we even come out. And then we'll send out one or two of the mediums. We'll go in cold, we'll read it, we'll see what we pick up on, if anything at all. Sometimes we can get a solution from our visit. Other times it warrants more, and if it warrants more, the team will come back in and try to document the phenomena. And then if we can help, we'll help, and if we can't, we'll find them somebody that can.
Right.
And one of the things, one of our guys on the team, he's very religious, and he also studies a lot of other religious beliefs, because our thing is, if we come into your house and your faith is Muslim, or your faith is something other than Christian, and we try to put a Christian fix to that, it's not going to work,
No.
because it's not doesn't match your belief system. So we take that very serious, because you got to find a solution for the people that they can buy into and believe, because if you don't, you're not helping them. And so that's how we got into residential work. So to answer your question, I know I kind of went off on a tangent, but
No, that's
to
fine.
to answer your question is, no, we've not done much at Smoky Mountains or actually in the woods, and most of our stuff has been either documented hauntings or residential work or our events. Like I said, we do 15 on average 15 to 20 public event nights a year at 4 state locations that we have exclusive access to. Because of our reputation, is how we ended up doing those. The reason that we do those is because we raise money for those sites. I'll give you one quick example of that. The Deary Inn in Bluntville is a site that we do at least 4 nights a year. We raise more for them in those 4 nights than they get from the county to keep the site open. And this is a hotel that has been there since 1796. Um, 4 presidents have stayed there through history. The King of France stayed there. The Marquis de Lafayette, the one that was with Washington during crossing the Delaware. Some big, powerful, notable historical people stayed there, and the county gives them very little funds. So we literally make more money for them in 4 nights than they get from the county alone. So that's the biggest reason we do those events, is to raise money for those sites and help keep those doors open.
Right. And I agree with you, like on your residential, we do the exact same thing you guys do when it comes to that. That's what we do quite a bit as residential. We do more residential than we do events.
So I got a question. During COVID, did you see a spike right after COVID? Like
Yep.
after things opened back up, did you have like a huge run on residential
Oh
cases?
yeah.
We did
Yeah.
too.
We were
Yep.
back to back every weekend. We'd go out Friday night to one location and head to the next location on Saturday, and we were doing that for every weekend straight.
Yep, we had a run of that too. It's gotten kind of quiet though here lately. We've not had as many. We've actually been slow for the last probably year from what we were. But yeah, right after COVID, we had a huge spike, and then it kind of dropped off. I guess where people were cooped up at home more, they
Yeah.
were starting to experience things where maybe they weren't, where they were at work and at school and everything else. But then when they were locked at home, they started realizing that those weird things they hear every once in a while, maybe more than just the occasional house settling noise or whatever.
That, and then they were bringing all that different energy because they were probably at each
That's
other's
fair
throats,
too.
so they're
Yep.
bringing all that negative stuff in, and we're
Yep.
just
And there was no outlet for it, for
yep.
sure. For sure.
But yeah, it's starting to pick up for us for residential. We've already gotten some calls coming in already.
Yeah, I actually, I mean, I enjoy doing the residential cases. I mean, we never, that's one of those things you'll never see on any of our social medias, because that's private stuff between us and the client. Those people are at their last ditch effort. They're
Yeah,
wanting solutions. They're not wanting recognition, or to be put on spectacle. So we
right.
don't ever share that stuff. But I love those cases, because sometimes it's, connecting them to, a relative that passed, that there's unfinished business. Sometimes it's that simple, or sometimes it's somebody that's just attached to the property because it meant so much to them and they had unfinished business. So finding those answers and solutions is always very gratifying in residential cases.
Greg said the name of the race was the Bark Barkley Marathon.
That's it. Yep. Yep. So I just found that fascinating that they like do this whole big race basically centered around his escape from Brescia.
Yep, and I mean for us with residential, it's a good sense of relief when you're actually able to see your client walk through their house and the house feels lighter after you did a cleansing on it. See the smiles on their faces that they got their house back.
Right, and you're empowering them. It's one of the things I'm sure you guys do too. We actually have them take their house back. Like,
Yep,
claim this space is yours. Tell
we
them that this is your space, and seeing them take that control back is very gratifying.
and we've had to do the same thing you did. Go in after another team and clean up the mess. They go in
And made
there,
it worse.
stir it up, and then they turn around and walk out and leave the client holding the bag. And
Yeah, and won't return their phone calls and just won't come back out. And then things are 10 times worse than it was before they came out. Yeah, that's how we got into doing residentials, was because of that very thing.
there was a case that we did up in Nebraska for, and it used to be an old school for the blind. They turned into a house, and they would lock the kids that were bad in the basement in a cage, and they had a plywood floor. And all they would do is when the kids would die down there, they'd just open the plywood up, and they had a hole right below it. They would drop down in there,
That's terrible.
and they called us in because the lady's husband, he was freaking out. She sent me a video of him, and he's sitting there going like this, like he's typing something. And then she says his name, and he turns and he looks at her with this blank stare and goes, "Shh."
Oh, that's creepy.
And so she right away got a hold of us, and they had a team in there prior to that. That team didn't even last 10 minutes in there. And they ended
Wow.
up bringing in a fake priest to do a blessing on the house, which didn't work.
Well, yeah, of course not. Yeah, there's no legitimate intention there because as intention's everything, right?
Yep. So we ended up going out there. We were there till got there at 3 in the afternoon. Was there till 9 o'clock the next morning,
Yep,
and
seeing it through.
we did a cleansing on the guy. My dad did work with him with holy water, put holy water on his hands, and the guy never experienced another episode since.
Yeah, he was definitely being influenced for sure. That's a scary thing.
Yeah, it's scary to see what they go through, especially our first demonic case that we got called into, and that was I was still kind of new at the demonic stuff. I mean, I studied it by reading Ed and Lorraine stuff and studying demonology with Sister Farah, and we ended up getting called in for that case, and that was our very first demonic one we had to deal with.
Wow, I'm very fortunate. That's something that I can say I've not had to deal with is what I would say is true demonic. I've dealt with some dark negative stuff, yes, some inhuman stuff, yes, but not true for us. Not true demonic. We've been fortunate not to encounter that yet. I know
Yeah,
it's definitely out there, but we've
it's
just been
it's
fortunate to not
rare.
yet.
I mean, you don't run into it all the time. I mean, a lot of it's just a regular spirit just acting like an idiot,
Yep,
like it did when it was alive,
that's it. You are in death how you are in life, right? For sure.
trying to scare the new owners out of the house because they're trespassing in their territory.
Yep, they're just angry because there's somebody there. Yep. But I'm just saying, feel blessed that I've not had to work a demonic case. I'm glad
Yeah,
because
it's not easy, and it is true what like Lorraine Ed and Lorraine says. It does take a little piece out of you the more you deal with it.
I can definitely see that. One of a friend of mine is you probably know him, Bishop Long.
Yep.
He's does a lot of exorcisms. He's done, I think, 19 or 20 actual exorcisms. I was talking to him one time, and Rhonda and a few of us have taken some of his classes on angels and demons, demonology, the
Mhm.
paranormal classes he does. Which all of those classes are kind of cool because he puts all the money to charity. All
Yeah.
the money he raises from it goes to the battered women's charity. But anyway, I was talking to him at one of the events when I first met him about a case we had that wasn't demonic, but it was a negative attachment, and there's a whole backstory there. It's a whole another thing. But I was talking to him about it, kind of get his feel on it, and he was telling me some of the experiences that he's had during exorcisms, and he said the same thing. He said that even though he's a man of faith and he's been trained to do exorcisms, it takes a toll. You actually, you give up a little bit of yourself every time you take that battle on. So that really stuck with me when he said that, because I mean, he's got nothing to gain from doing this other than helping people. So that's a genuine thing when you see that. So
And I've even got scars from a demonic attack. I actually faced one head on in a case we did in Oklahoma.
yeah, I'm glad I've not encountered that to date. So
The guy was doing demonic worshiping in his house. He had 2 little boys there and a 19-year-old.
hmm,
And his mom called us in, and it was an emergency, so my dad and I are the only ones that went, so I was investigating solo. But I would stay in camera view so he could see me and he could hear me if anything went on, and our camera was sitting there, and it was pulsating in the hallway. After I stopped to take a break, and we kept watching it, got worse. Next thing you know, this figure appears in it, big, black, tall figure. And I said to my dad, I said, "Keep an eye on it, I'm gonna go check that out." I go back in the hallway back there, and I'm standing face to face with this thing. Well,
hmm,
it drops down to about 5 feet, runs directly up my legs, and disappears, and I'm hanging on to my St. Benedict medal. Next thing I know, there's 3 scratches that look like razors down my arm,
wow,
and I still have the scars from it.
wow, yeah,
And
that's that's a heavy thing for sure. I can see where that definitely leaves a indelible mark, as they say.
yep, and I mean, we still do it. We get called for demonic cases. We're one of the few teams that will handle them.
Sure.
And if it gets too bad, I just call Farrah, and Farrah takes it from there.
And that's a huge point too. I think when people get into this, and I'm not knocking paranormal television. I think it's a great thing, but I think they have an idea of how things are. Um, how things are, and it's not necessarily what reality is, and they get into things to get over their head, and then they don't know what to do, and sometimes instead of you know, helping the situation like we talked about earlier, they actually make it worse.
Yep.
So it's important to have that. I guess what I'm saying is it's important that if you do take on residential work, if there's any teams that watch this and they're considering taking on residential work, the one piece of advice I would give is build a network of people like your sister Farrah and James Long, whoever. Build a network of people that when you find yourself in a case that is over your head, you can call somebody to help the people, because at the end of the day that's what it's about, is helping those clients.
And that first one we dealt with, we were able to help her. It took about 6 months. But, I mean, this client was to the point she wanted to kill her husband,
Yeah, that heavy influence for sure.
and her husband, very nice guy. He's a firefighter and EMT, so he's gone most of the time. He
Right.
wants nothing to do with her kids. There was a noose hanging in the basement closet from the previous owners, and we opened that closet door up, and it was just like snap, flip the switch. She freaked out, ran upstairs crying. Her daughter goes, "I love you, mom." She went like this and ran out the door, and we went after her. And one of my members were holding her hand. That's when her eyes were rolling in the back of her head and said, It's mine. I don't want it to leave."
Wow, gosh.
Had upside down cross scratched in her neck.
Wow.
And we wanted her to leave the house for the night to see if it was the actual property or it was attached to her.
Attached to her, yeah. Kind of
But
isolate the situation, yeah.
and it was attached to the house itself. So we were able to get rid of it, and we're like family now.
In that infestation phase, or the oppression phase, more than the actual possession phase, right?
But it was basically showing us what, "Hey, look what I can do. You keep messing
Right.
around, this is what I'm gonna do."
Right.
And it saw we weren't gonna back down, and we got rid of it. at night. We had to keep going back and doing some cleansings for like 6 months on the place, and now it's back to normal. She's living her life with her family, and she's got some healthy grandbabies, and
That's great. Yep, that's great.
we get invited over for dinner, and
Yeah, because you saw it through and found a true resolution to it.
and
That's what's so important.
he still gets a little bit of residual that bounces through, which is the former owner of the house. He'll come back and check on things because the grandkid, her grandson, will point him out in the hallway, but he's not scared. He'll kind of say hi to it, and it's like the old man is just kind of he died there, so he's just kind of like saying hi to his grandkid, and then he leaves.
Just kind of still got his little imprint there.
Yep. And I said he's gonna come back to kind of make sure his house is good.
Yeah, means he was connected to it. He's checking on it.
And she'll smell roses in the house once in a while. I told her that's a good thing if you're smelling roses.
Yep.
And and then we had that one in Oklahoma. That one was bad. That guy ended up, he didn't listen to anything we said. He reverted back to his old ways and tried to kill his girlfriend. She dove out of a moving vehicle at 70.
My gosh,
And that's down on the Trail of Tears in Oklahoma.
that's a lot of old energy from a really rough period in history.
Yep. We drove through a lot of the past land that they took from the Native Americans.
Yeah, I think there's something to that too. I think if you look at like hotspots, if we were to map cases, dark cases, demonic cases, negative cases, I think we would start to see a pattern of
Yep.
where lower vibration energy is trapped or moving more frequently. I think you tend to the ingredients are there more in certain areas than others because if you look, there are certain areas or pockets of the country that seem to produce a higher number of those type of cases
Yep.
than other areas, and I truly think that's why.
And we get majority of our calls are all South Missouri, where we get
And
quite a bit.
well, and historically, I mean, Missouri, Kansas, that area, the Northeast, there's certain areas that do tend to have higher frequencies of those type of hauntings and negative cases. It's just there's something to that for sure.
Well, you figure like South Missouri had all the Civil War.
Yeah,
You have the Mormon massacres, the
a lot of
Osage,
violence. Yep,
Osage Indians murdered families down through there, and
yep,
you got the Ozark Mountains and Mark Twain National Forest has got a demonic cemetery in it, and
yeah.
that's
I
got
mean,
its cryptid sightings out there as well.
and that makes sense. I mean, you think about those different areas, the history definitely has a toll on everything. It leaves a mark. I mean,
Yep,
as a psychic, as a medium, you'll appreciate what I'm about to say. You got to also separate out that energy of the living and the dead and what's been like, right, that residual, that constant movement. Like if you go to a hotel or a hospital, you can feel that sidewalks, the stairs, you can feel that movement. So now if you have movement that's got a lot of negativity attached to it and a lot of dark attached to it, sure, you're going to have a higher frequency of those type of events because more of that energy has been deposited in other places. And I think though the sad thing is, as you point out some legitimate cases that you've worked, I think there is still a lot of misinformation. I think there's still a lot of mislabeled cases. I do think the demon thing gets thrown around a lot in cases it shouldn't because it's just really negative spirits.
yep,
It's just assholes. I mean, I'll just say what it is. That's what they were in life. I guess I always phrase it this way: if women ran into Jack the Ripper in spirit form, he's probably not going to give them roses and chocolates,
no,
right? Because that's not what he did. Just like when we talked about earlier, you go to a prison, you shouldn't be surprised that you have some heavy energy because that's what's there. So I do think sometimes inexperienced teams and experienced researchers will jump to that conclusion long before it is
yep,
the conclusion. Like you said, it's a rare phenomenon. Thankfully, it's not in every, like TV would have us believe it's on every street corner, but I
right,
don't believe that it is. In
yeah, I
my
don't.
experience, but
And I mean, demonic calls, we'll get 1 out of maybe 20 calls we'll get,
That's something dark. And how many of them actually turn out to be truly demonic, though?
and a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are just malicious ones just trying to
Yep,
act demonic to scare, or a lot of it is in the client's ear because they're like
100%.
diagnosed schizophrenic, they've
Yep.
got a history of drugs and alcohol, or they're using.
And it's hallucinatory, and yeah, absolutely. That's why it's so important to have that component of looking at the mental health, the abuse, the alcoholism, drug use. That's why for us, it's, and I'm sure it is for you guys too, it's an important part of that pre-client screening, because you got to check all those boxes before you can even go down the paranormal road. And then once you go down the paranormal road, you got a million boxes you got to check there before you can come to that conclusion. So
Yep.
it's great to hear, teams that take to that level, because I think unfortunately some don't, and
No,
that's
they
negative when they do.
and then they just walk in there, "Oh, they're looking for a thrill." Well, you got a client that's
Yeah,
freaking
got to
out,
live
that's
there.
scared, and that's gotta live there, and you go in there, you stir it up, you walk out, and then that client's gotta suffer with it.
Yep,
Or if you do a cleansing on the house and they do it wrong, they throw it in the
yep.
hiding, that thing waits until everything clears, and
And the whole time it's just feeding on strengthening and getting stronger. And when it comes
yep,
back, it usually comes back worse,
yep,
or they apply the wrong thing. Like we had a case that they thought was that way. They thought was demonic. They brought a priest in to cleanse the place, and it didn't help anything. And it was because it happened to be Native American. What they needed was a shaman. They
yep,
didn't need a priest. They needed the right solution. So through some time, we were able to point them to the right connections, and we got somebody to come in there and actually do the type of cleansing it needed, because it was a Native American issue. It was not a Christian fix, a Muslim fix, Judeo fix isn't going to fix that, and it just made things worse. So yeah, knowing what you're dealing with is a really important part of this stuff for sure.
and we did a case where somebody came in, they did a cleansing on the house, it didn't work, they threw it into hiding, and it sure enough, as soon as they left, about a couple weeks later, it came back out again, and it was full force, angry, and it was wreaking havoc on the
Yeah.
homeowner again.
Well, I think people think you can just light sage and walk around with a feather and it's going to magically clear everything
Yeah,
out. They don't understand it's about intention, it's about energy, it's about a lot of things. There's steps that have to be taken along with that. It's in sense it's a ritual. You have to do a true, it's a cleansing ritual. Whether it's based in prayer or it's based in Native American belief, it's got to be done a certain way, and there has to be intent. Intent is everything. I always tell people too, investigations are that way too. If you go into an investigation trying to provoke things and trying to look for negative stuff, you're going to attract negative stuff.
yep,
When we
you're
open
gonna
that
follow the
door, yeah, you're going to invite that over, right? What you bring to the party is definitely what's reflected back to you. So being in the right state of mind and going in with the right intentions can be the difference between having a really good experience in a place or having a heavy experience.
yep,
You can definitely open that door, because we don't know. We don't know what we're inviting over sometimes. So once we open that door, you got to be prepared for what's going to walk through it. So your state of mind is huge when you go into that environment. So I think intention is everything.
that's why we try not to do Estes if the client's around or anything like that, because we don't want them hearing what we're talking about, and we'll get some clients that'll sit there, try to eavesdrop on what we're doing,
Yep.
and
And
then
I'm
all of a sudden it's getting their minds working that, "Oh, they're talking something dark," or
then all of a sudden it's 10 times worse in their mind than it was
"Yep,
to start. Yeah. And I'm sure you get these too. You get the cases where they really just want to be ghost hunters. So they call you out to do a residential case because they just want to experience something.
yep,
And it's
yep."
like, okay, that's not what we're here for. That's not the thing. So you get those two, I'm sure. So
Yeah, oh, yeah, we get them,
the
and
thrill seekers.
we get them where I was working one case where it was like we left to go eat, we come back, and it was like a party going on. It was like we were a circus act. There was
Yep.
only 3 people left in the house when we left to go eat. We come back and there's about 12 of them in there, and I was like, "What is this?" And
Open
they're like, "Oh,
house.
We invited our
Oh
grandkids over.
gosh,
I
yep,
was like, "We don't need that here. This is what I told you. Just you 3 were fine. We're not a circus act. My team's not a
yep.
circus act. We're not here for show. We're here to
It's
help you."
serious. Yep, exactly. Yep, and we get them too. And you know, they did. That's what I tell them. Like, if you want to do that, you know, go find a team to investigate with. We have events. Come to an event. We're not here to put on a show for you. Oh, thank you, Craig. I appreciate that.
And that's what
Um,
people think.
yeah.
We're a sideshow, we're a circus act, and
Yep.
that we're there for their amusement, and we're not.
Yeah, it's a serious thing. I mean, and we, you know, we take like you, we take it serious. I mean, you know, and I'm not saying, look, if people want to thrill seek, there, that's fine. Do your thing, but don't do it in a residential environment, and don't do it, and don't drag people out to do something because you want to thrill seek. I mean,
Yeah, if
that's
you want
just not
to thrill
cool.
seek, go pay for an event and go thrill seek with
Yep, have fun.
an
Yep,
event, have fun and do it.
and if
Residential
you,
aren't for
yeah,
fun.
are not for fun. Exactly. I mean, you know, if you want to rent a location and you know do what you saw on whatever show, then that's fine. But that's not the place for it. It's definitely not residentials. But yeah, we get the same thing. You know, we get called out to a place, and it's like next thing you know, they're like you said, inviting people over, or they're FaceTiming and saying, "Hey, meet this person." And what do you guys? You guys got anybody on? You got a ghost yet? And it's like, okay, no, get out of here. Like that's not what we're doing.
We did a case in Kansas for a person, and the client's husband was at work, and he says, "I got the Warrens' cousins in my house, and everybody wanted to come over."
Yeah, that's not cool.
Don't tell them that you got them in
Yeah.
your house, and then you're gonna have people just randomly showing up here while we're trying to investigate. So we're here to help you out, figure out what's going on, not having people show up.
Absolutely. Yep.
Said if they want to meet us that bad, find us at Paracons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, there's plenty of events. There's plenty of places to go and experience those
Yep,
things. And again, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's a lot of teams that, and I mean, I guess I can also say I understand that when I first got into this, I wanted to experience stuff too. I didn't do it at residential cases because we didn't do them back then, but I went to places to experience things. I wanted an EVP. I wanted that just to see what this was because I'd had those two experiences that I couldn't explain. So of course I wanted to have more so I could start to understand it. So I think we all, I guess what I'm saying is we all start out with a little bit of that thrill seeker in us, but I think something happens pretty quickly. You start to understand the gravity and the seriousness of what this is. And again, like at our events, I always tell people, look, even if you're the biggest skeptic and your wife dragged you here, or your husband dragged you here, or your brother dragged you here, and you think this is the dumbest thing ever, I'm going to ask you to please be respectful and know that we do take this serious because spirit attachment is a real thing. It can happen. It does happen. It happened to me. I brought something home and almost left paranormal because of it. It was a rough 3 or 4 months of my life, and my wife will tell you it affected our house a lot, and almost left because of it. Left the paranormal. So it's a real thing. I mean, you know, you have to take it serious, and you have to whatever your protection system is. If it's crystals, if it's prayer, whatever that is, it's important to have that ritual for yourself to protect yourself and protect the people that are like you said on your team or
yep,
that you're working with, or if you have guests or whatever the case may be. And that's another thing as a medium, you find yourself holding energy for everybody. You know, you're not just holding energy for you, but you're holding energy for everybody, kind of keeping that bubble. So yeah, I mean it's definitely something to take very serious.
that and especially as a team founder and leader, your whole priority is to make sure you're safe.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the first thing. Or if we have guests, or we sometimes will bring people on investigations with us that are getting into this to try to show them what we do and the right way to do things, or not
Yep,
the only way, but our way of doing things. Because I think there's many ways to do things. I'm not saying that ours is the only way, just saying the way that works for us is what we show them. And yeah, so my priority is always, you know, number one, if it's residential, you know, the clients, my team, and the reputation that we have to maintain that. When I have the public events, when we do those, it's the team, it's the location, it's the people that are coming to the event. It's making sure everybody is safe and is getting
yep.
to enjoy the history and experience the paranormal if the paranormal happens that particular evening. That's the other thing I always tell them. It's not a roller coaster ride. This isn't Dollywood. Can't make something happen. It will either happen or it won't. So we may go out here and have 4 hours, 5 hours where we sit in the dark and talk to thin air, or we might have the best night we've ever had. We don't
Right.
know. It's not up to us. It's up to spirit, and that's what I always tell them. So yeah, you're right on the money with what you said. So
And I mean, even at like the Nespers event, the Devil on the Run tour, we get haunted at Missouri State. There was people there that actually got overwhelmed with a lot of stuff between the artifacts from the museum and then just that prison alone.
absolutely.
There was one girl, they brought her back. She was going in shock. She got overtaken, got drained really quick, and they were ready to call the ambulance for her. So my dad was sitting in the lobby there because his knees were bad. He couldn't really walk around with us. So she sat down by him and he did some work with her in prayers, holy water, and he had a cleansing medallion that he wears. He gave it to her and she snapped right out of it. She was fine for the rest of the night.
Yep, for sure. I mean, that's the thing. You got to keep an eye on everybody that's with you. I've had to do it. I've had to take people out at events or even the team. We've had we call it getting jumped by a spirit. We had one of our guys get jumped at Harriman Hospital, which is a wonderful location. One of my favorites. Old South Pitt, Ronnie D owns it, and Old South Pittsburgh, and a few others. But Harriman in down here in Tennessee, actually, any of the prisoners that got sick or injured at Brushy were taken to Harriman when it was a community hospital because it's only like 30 minutes away from where the prison is. Um, but he had an experience where, and he's open, he's learning his mediumship, and he let his guard down enough, and he had one come at him, and it just attached to him, and it was probably a transfer because he was in the room that they actually used for where the prisoners would be brought there. That would be the
Right.
secure room they would keep them in. That's where he was when he had the interaction. And when he came upstairs, he wanted to kill me. Like he's like, it's not me, but I want to kill you because that's just what I feel. I want to wring your neck, and that's not him. And he knew that, and he recognized that the thoughts were not his. So we took him out, we cleansed him, we did some energy work with him, and got him recentered and went back to work. But yeah, so I mean that's definitely part of it. You gotta really keep an eye on everybody.
Yeah, we had to do that with a member at our first demonic case there too. He come to me and says, "I want to kill your father,"
Yep.
and I was like, "No, you're not. You need to get right." And we did some work with her and got her back on track, and then she was fine for the rest of the night. But that's like
Yeah,
I talked
for
to a
sure.
bishop. Uh, Even with your demonic stuff, the devil has your wanted poster in hell. That demonic entity knows who you are, what car you drive, your birth date. It knows when you're coming.
Just waiting for the opportunity.
Yep.
Yep,
And
that's the same thing he told me. He said, "Yeah," he said, "they're just waiting for that opportunity."
and a lot of people don't realize it takes for like us, we have to do a substantial amount of cleansings afterwards with
Every time, for
meditation.
sure.
Cleanse your
Yep,
car, your equipment. We
yep.
bless our car before we leave the house, we bless the equipment, and then when we leave the location, we'll pull off on the side of the road somewhere out in the middle of nowhere so the client doesn't see what we're doing and cleanse the car, cleanse the equipment. And
Yeah, Ronnie is a good dude for sure.
so we end up having to do that, and then it takes a toll out of you. You're drained for we want to say
Absolutely.
about a week.
Yeah, and even if it's not heavy cases, even if it's just normal cases, I mean, when you start working on that side, on the mediumship side, and you're
Yep.
pulling psychically and mediumistically, that's definitely. I mean, for me, it's depending on where I'm going to. If I know I'm going to, say, a prison, or I'm going to a hospital, or I'm going to a known dark location, there's a period of time I'm preparing days out. I'm getting myself mentally, spiritually right to go. I'm getting my energy up where it needs to be and maintain that. I'm opening myself up, putting my protections in, calling in my guides, doing all the things that I need to do to prepare. I'm sitting with my guides days out and journaling what I need to do so I know before I go. And then the aftermath is the same thing. It's the cleansing, it's the 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 getting the stuff right again and pushing that energy off because you got to reset. The same thing with gallery readings. Tori, Rhonda, and I did a gallery reading a couple weeks ago. All great people, beautiful messages, all from loved ones, but there still is that energetic
Yep.
exchange we have with those spirits that you still have to then cleanse that away from you and reset yourself, because I mean we're like a battery, right? And if we get drawn down enough and we don't take care of that, then we can get sick and we can start opening doors to the dark stuff to find the weakness. So it's really important to that self care is super important.
Yeah, and I was just assisting on a case, and as soon as I looked at this picture of this client and started doing the reading, I ended up getting sick afterwards. I caught that ended up with that new virus that's mixed with COVID and the flu, and I was sick for 2 weeks.
Yep.
And I was talking to my mentor, Wade Kirby, about it, and he says, "Yeah, you're spiritually drained. You've been spiritually attacked."
Yep, it does, and it takes a toll. Absolutely. And like you said earlier, you get into the demonic stuff or the dark stuff, it takes an even bigger slice of
Yep.
the pie. So it's super important. It's super important to do all those things. And again, I think it goes back to intentions. I think if your intentions are in the right place, people like you can handle what you do. People like me can handle what we do, not because we're special or different. It's just because we take it serious. The
Yep.
intentions are right, and we've taken the time to study and practice and practice what we preach. We just don't talk this. We live it, and that's the difference. You have to do that. You have to live it.
And that's what I tell new investigators all the time. If you're wanting to do this, go with the team and learn. That's
Absolutely.
experience. Don't go out and try to do it yourself, and you're running into these abandoned buildings you know nothing about.
Yep.
You don't know what's in there. You don't
No.
know the history of the building. You don't know what spirits are there. You don't know if somebody went in there and opened up a demonic doorway in there, and you're walking
A
in there.
portal. Yeah, for sure.
You're inexperienced. You're gonna get yourself killed, hurt, or you're gonna bring in an attachment home with
Absolutely. And what's the first thing that dark entities will do? They will present themselves as something to let your guard down. You're going
you.
to
Yep.
see a little boy. You're going to see a little girl. You're going to see a woman that's in distress. You're going to see something that's going to automatically make you think it's safe to
Yep.
interact with that. And you're going to let that guard down. And that's when it happens. So as soon as you drop, because that's what happened to me with my attachment. I went to a known place that is a dark haunting. There's a lot of folklore around it. Did a lot of research. This is before the mediumship stuff. This is much earlier in my paranormal career, and started thinking that folklore is probably not. It's a lot more hype than reality, right? So let the guard down and go in there and kind of lackadaisical. Didn't take the steps I've always taken and still take to this day, even on a new level now. And that's how it happened. I opened the door. I allowed the invite to happen because the weird thing is when I go back and look at footage from that, and I never shared the footage publicly because it's that disturbing to me. And it's just the fact that I was literally provoking it. I was like, use me, come into me. What am I doing? Like, I would never do that, but I was because I let my guard down and it let me, I was weak enough that boom. And that's all it takes is, you're cracking the armor and it's game on for them. So, yeah, I mean, I totally appreciate what you're saying on that note because it's so true.
And that's even like your haunted dolls. The demonic entity is gonna attach to a doll because
That's easy. It's a vessel.
you feel comfortable with a doll because
Absolutely.
you think it's safe. There you go. You're holding it up to your body,
Yep.
right to your heart chakra.
And whoop, yep. Yeah. And you let your guard down. Yep. I mean, and things can be attached, and good things can be attached to stuff too. I'm a firm believer that not everything is attached as dark, but you're absolutely right, and that's. I mean, look at Annabelle. Annabelle is probably one of the greatest examples of that. I mean, it's an innocent little rag doll. That's not really, but I mean, the vessel is right. So, I mean, that's it. That's the
Well, that's
yeah.
even the dolls that we picked up out of a location. The lady was blind. She could only see shapes, shadows, and bright lights, and she picked these dolls up at a thrift store. Well, they started terrorizing her.
Yep.
and 2 of the dolls are the most evil ones, and we did a session at a Paracon the next day with the one doll. They did a double Estes, which if you wanna see the video on that, it's on L&M Paranormal's
I'll
YouTube
check it
channel,
out for sure.
and that doll made a whole room go dark, and it called my name several times, wanted me to take it back because it wasn't happy I had it bound to a case.
Right.
The other doll in the red dress, it was calling for her because she's the other one that was demonic. There was a little one our client called little Annabelle, its eyes were gouged out. That one would mess with people's hearts. The other doll, when you take pictures of it, would turn and grin at the camera.
And that's the crazy thing. You go to a lot of these haunted locations too, right? This is a thing that I think is interesting. It goes right along with what you're talking about. You go to some of these big haunted locations that we all go and visit because
Mhm.
they're hot spots of places that we want to go check out. Almost all of them have a doll room
Yep,
with all these dolls that people have brought there. So who the hell knows what now has been added into the mix, because who knows what came with that doll.
yep,
Sometimes they could be positive spirits. I mean, I've got a couple haunted objects that are definitely safe spirits, safe things that are attached to them. But they also, you got to know that though, right? I mean, you got to know what that energy
yep,
is. And I'll walk into them doll rooms sometimes in these places, and it's like, ooh, that one right there, hell no, that one right there is no good. I mean, you just know, right? And so it's like all these places have these doll rooms where all these dolls get brought there,
right,
and it's wild. Like the shrine, there's several there. I even brought one to the shrine not too long ago that had a dark attachment with it. That was one of those that was giving a lady a lot of problems, and she was trying to get rid of it, and she had posted on Facebook trying to get rid of it. And I reached out to her privately. I said, "Hey, look, I've read the picture. I've read this doll. What you're having you're having problem, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "Yeah, that's happening. That's happening. That's happening." I was like, "Okay." I said, "If you want to get rid of it, I will take it. Not keeping it. I got a place I can take it where it can be what it is and not terrorize people." And when I met her to pick the thing up and we put it in the car, my wife will tell you this. We were driving the car and she looked at me and she's like, "Do you feel that?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah." It's like it was this, like, it felt like there was a giant in the back seat just doing this over our shoulders. And it was on our ride to the shrine to get it delivered to the shrine. Because, I mean, it's where it needed to be. It did not need to be in somebody's house. It did not need to be something that somebody plays with trying to have an experience, because what's behind that doll is not what it presents at first.
yep,
So now it happily lives at the shrine. So, yeah. So the moral of the story is, you're again right on the money there with that. Is, yeah, I mean, there are vessels that, again, let your guard down, right? Same thing as when it presents as a little boy or a little girl. It's
yep.
giving you that opening to let your guard down.
And that doll, we had a team sitting right across from us, and they turned their equipment on because they knew them dolls were haunted, and it was coming across their spirit box saying, "Murder, beat him with a shovel, he lied," and the one team come over to tell us, and that little one was messing with her heart. She had to walk away. Her heart was doing all palpitations and skipping beats, and
Yeah, I mean, the dark stuff wants to hurt and do damage. It doesn't want to sing kumbaya and roast marshmallows. You know, that's the cold hard truth about it.
that's why I knew the Warrens Occult Museum would be the perfect place for him.
Yep, because you can't hurt nobody there.
And even that mask we gave John Zaffis, that the owner of the movie theater that we investigate, she found it in her house between the wall and the safe, and it was causing a lot of issues in her house. She was laying in bed to take a nap, and she woke up to something trying to enter into her mouth. Her grandkid seen somebody that looked like grandma going out the front door, and grandma was still laying in bed.
Yeah, wasn't grandma.
And they had the fire department and the cops called to the house one night because it looked like smoke was coming out of the roof. And they get there and there's no fire. There's nothing going on. It was that mask that was causing all the issues. So she found it, got it in a case, and we told her spray holy water on top of that case. And she gave it to me, and I gave it to John. And it's a ceremonial mask carved out of wood.
Yeah, and who knows what kind of rituals it was used in, right? I mean,
Yep.
there's no
And I
telling.
mean, he's got her own issues with the movie theater as well with the hauntings that are going on there. That movie theater was actually on the show Dead Files in 2012, and we're the only team since Dead Files to go in there and investigate. You don't let teams in there except for us.
Right. Because of what's there.
And there
Yeah.
is a man there that is not very friendly. He will hurt you. We've been growled at there. So did the priest that they brought in there, Amy Allen, who brought
Yep.
in. The priest was growled at. We were growled at. My dad's been pushed in there. He almost got thrown over the balcony. I've had my phone get thrown in there.
It's amazing that some of them can have that kind of power. I mean, and that kind of
And
even like bad humans or bad human spirits can even be that strong sometimes. Is amazing.
and her staff all the time, one gets pinched all the time. They'll be in there working and they'll hear the seats going up and down like this and hear people talking. There's one in there that mocks people. I caught that on an EVP. We were in the behind the screen in Cinema One in the back hallway doing an EVP session, and I could have sworn my one member when I listened to the audio said hello. He was they were up in Cinema Two, well away from us,
I've,
investigating.
we've had that happen too with the same voice. Bobby Mackey's. We were investigating Bobby Mackey's this about 3 or 4 years ago, and we were doing a spirit box session in the apartment upstairs, and we heard what sounded like the guy that was one of the guys that was with me, our case manager. We literally heard his voice say a sentence over the box, and he was standing right with me. So there's no way. We weren't using walkie talkies or nothing. It came out of the spirit box, and it sounded like him saying, "Hey, you need to come over here." And that's what the box said. And I was like, I turned to look at him. I said, well, Al, what do you mean? He goes, I didn't say that. It came from the box. So, so that's yeah. So the mocking is a weird thing too. That'll kind of take you back when that happens because it's like
Yep.
it's somebody else's voice and it's really freaky when that happens.
And see, with that man, he was shot and killed out on front sidewalk. He was
Mm,
a very good man when he was alive. He was messing with the manager's wife, and the manager told him, "You take my wife and marry her if you're gonna mess around with her." And he said, "No, I'll leave her alone. You got a family." Well, they were across the
wow.
street at a get together, and the manager of the movie theater at that time, he went to the restroom, comes back out. Here's a guy over with his wife. They both been drinking.
Wow.
They were drunk. They got in a heated argument, and the guy went to leave, and the manager told him, "You keep messing with my wife, I'm gonna kill you. I told you. This done. You said you leave her alone." And they argued some more. He went to leave, and the manager followed him. They got across the street in front of the theater. He pulled out a pistol and shot him.
Yep.
And he likes to grab. He's the one that likes to grab people. I've got a video of a former member of mine actually, her face morphing into his face
Oh wow.
on video, and she's sitting there with her thumb just digging her own face open and don't even know she's doing it.
Oh wow.
And she will never investigate with us again after that. That scared
That
her away
that
from.
did her in. Yep.
Yep. I sent that video to her husband because he investigates with us once in a while, and he showed it to her. And I told him if she still wants to do it, what protection stuff to get. And but
You need to do it the
after
right way. Yeah.
that same night, I had her. She was so overwhelmed after that happened when she seen the scratches on her face. I made her sit in command central the rest of the night with my dad,
Yep.
and I could tell she was shaken up, and she was gonna come back with us the second time we did it, and she ended up going home early. She didn't feel good.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing.
Russell, what year did that happen with the movie manager and the guy who was messing? That was in the 1920s. Frank
Yeah,
Cello was the manager's name, and Estill Turner was the guy he shot.
wow. Yeah, and that's yeah, I mean that's those kind of things that leave a mark. And you think about it, if that kind of stuff leaves an imprint, right, and that imprint's there, and then we tap into that imprint, and I'm not talking about residual. I'm talking about we're tapping back into that same
Yep.
negative energy space, and it's intelligent. It's obviously still him that's connected there. It's- when they have that ability to really lash out, they're going to. And if they can find the one person like that girl, unfortunately, in your case, that's what they're going to hone in on because that's what they feed off of. It gives them strength because then they pull from that. And yeah, so I mean, you think about it, we encounter that that same type of activity when we go into those places. It's and I think that's for me. Like I said, 20 years now, hundreds of investigations. I have more questions now than I did when I started. I've even though I've had all these experiences and I've done all these things and seen all this stuff, I still have more questions now than I did before.
Did you ever find out what happened to the manager? Did he get locked up, or did he get away with it, or did himself in so his spirit is there in that place? He they didn't have enough evidence to prove he did it back then. They didn't have the forensic stuff, and he chose the gun. He ended up divorcing his wife. His wife stayed here in Missouri. He moved to California and was a manager of a theater out in California, and that's where he died. But his spirit does come back to this theater because I have seen him there the first day we went there to see the owner because I have my clients fill out paperwork giving us permission and stuff.
Oh yeah, gotta have releases.
And I brought paperwork for her to fill out. Well, we were standing there talking to her. I was looking over her shoulder and I was watching something, and she noticed it, but she never did say a word. I didn't say nothing to her because I didn't know how she would react. And when we finally came to do the initial investigation, she says to me, Russell, the first day you were here, what were you watching over my shoulder? And I said there was a man with had his hair parted on the side. He was in like 1920s suit, wore glasses. His hair was kind of reddish. She says you just described Frank Cello, the former manager. I said, well, he was standing there watching, wondering what we were doing there.
Yeah, and that really makes a lot of sense to me. I think there's another misconception in the paranormal world, and one of those is, and I think I might have a thought on that. I'm sure I know you definitely have a thought, Russell. But um, what I was going to say is, there's this misconception that ghost dies somewhere or a person dies somewhere, their spirit is always stuck in that spot. I don't think that as a medium, I totally disagree with that because
You
we
do.
bring over messages all the time from people. Spirits can go where they want to go. They can travel locations. We've encountered the same spirit at other locations that has zero connection to that spirit. The only connection is us being in that space. So we're a way for them to come back over. My thoughts on why is he still stuck there? Is he bound to the theater? Or why does he stick there? My initial thought, my intuition on that would be being involved in something like taking somebody's life could have left such an imprint on him that he feels a need to be back there or come back to that location. That event doesn't always just trap the person that was killed. That may be where he's going back to now because that's unresolved for him. Because he did something that, even though in the heat of the moment felt right, it may have been something that has literally haunted him his life. And now in his afterlife, he feels a need to be back there for that reason. That's my intuition on that. I don't know. What's your thoughts, Russell?
No, I'm with you on that too as well. Also, too, his wife and kids stayed behind,
Ah, there you go. Yeah, you said that. That's even a bigger point. Yep,
so to
makes
him,
sense.
his wife and kids are probably still there, even though they're all passed on too. Even his kids are too.
Yep, that's just a recipe for him to need to be there. And it
Yeah,
could also be memories of a better time before that happened.
yeah. I mean, they
All
probably
that's part of it.
have memories him and his wife and his family being there. That he was happy he took over the theater as a manager, and I mean, there's also another girl that that's haunting the place. She was kidnapped 100 feet from there, and she was waiting for her date, and her date never showed up. She went
Oh
missing
man.
for 17 years, and they found her in the Missouri River strangled with window weights, and she haunts the place. Her name is Nellie Price. She's buried in the Marshall Cemetery right up the road from the movie theater in an unmarked grave next to her dad. Her dad's in an unmarked grave because we went out there to pay our respects and put some flowers on the grave. Maybe that would kind of settle her down a little bit in the theater because she's another one. She'll throw. She don't like the living. She will throw temper tantrums. She's the one that pinches people.
Sure.
She'll
Just,
bang on the pipes.
yeah.
She'll bang pots and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and it could, sometimes I think they could just be, they're angry that they're dead and they haven't accepted that death.
The manager's not considered an evil spirit. It's the guy that he shot is more of the one that likes to grab people and morph other people because he wasn't a very good man when he was alive either. He was he was a real slime ball from what I heard. If you watch look up the Madhouse episode of Dead Files and you'll hear all the history that
Oh,
Steve
cool.
put up on the guy. He actually talks to the local sheriff that's retired about the guy. And then there was Ming, who was another one that wasn't very friendly, who had a hotel right next to the movie theater. And his porter went in. His porter was a well-respected black man, and back then there was still that racism going on with the black people. And
Oh.
the movie theater has its own separate entrance for
I
the
was
black.
going to ask, did it have also a segregated balcony or something? Yeah.
And the porter went to go get paid for Ming. Well, Ming wasn't paying him. There was a heated argument there, and Ming pulled out a pistol and shot the porter, shot him right through the side of the face. And that porter ended up in the hospital, and he died about a day later in the hospital. Ming, they came and got him, and they locked him up in a mental institution. Well, he escaped, and he made it back to his hotel, and they found out that he was back in town, and he ended up doing himself in the hotel. He shot himself in the head, and he's also buried in one of the cemeteries there in Marshall. We found his grave as well, and they say he also haunts the movie theater too, and his hotel burnt to the ground.
Just a lot of negative stuff surrounding that piece of property.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that whole town of Marshall is just all negative. There's murders in the park. You read constant. There's just murders down there like
Yeah.
crazy.
That goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's that negative, that lower vibration. I mean, it's, and you go to these places, these towns, these areas, you feel it. You just feel this lower undercurrent that runs through there, and that's usually when we see the darker, heavier hauntings. Is that energy? It's just what it is.
Civil War too. There was
Oh
Civil
yeah,
War soldiers were based in the square and they got ambushed.
yeah. I mean, that's a lot of violence, right? I mean, that's
Yep.
and that
A
violence
lot
leaves
of
a
them,
mark.
a lot of them buildings, not just movie theaters haunted. We did a restaurant right up the road from there that used to be a hotel, and there's a woman in there that likes to hum. I was live on YouTube doing that investigation, and we actually captured her humming. We ended up catching a figure on the SLS in there. We had cat balls lined up on the stairwell. Each step had a cat ball on it. We come down the stairs and we're standing there, and the cat balls stop. Next thing you know, here comes all the cat balls going off.
Something following you down. That's cool.
Yep. And
That's cool.
he was following us, and the basement had been sealed up, and her husband opened it up, and we were able to communicate with somebody down there that was not very friendly. He was bootlegging moonshine down there when he was alive, and that's where it still was because they found a bunch of mason jars down there.
Tourist making his stuff. Yep.
Yep.
Probably
And
didn't like you being in his space.
no, he didn't like that.
Yeah.
He didn't like the fact that the husband actually opened up the basement. It was sealed over for a reason.
Yep. That
And
make, yep.
he told me since we've been there last time that it's been quiet. Nothing's really going on anymore. And I think that lady just wanted someone to talk to, and she's like, she knew, hey, these guys can communicate with me,
Yep.
and that's
And sometimes that's what they need. I mean, sometimes they just need to say what they have to say, and then that's it. They can move on. I'm a firm believer of that too.
a lot of crime since as long as one can remember. Yeah, I mean Marshall is just known for crime like crazy down there, as well as there's one place in Missouri too that kind of reminds you of like New York City and stuff. There's gang members and a lot of gangbangers, and we actually just did a case up there not too long ago, and it's right up from there. And there was a massacre right on that road. There was a serial killer that killed about 80 people on that road, and there was three black men that robbed and beat some white farmers, and they were strung up and hung.
It's
One
awful.
was
Yep.
one was shot, and the one ended up being in her house, which because the house wasn't too far away from where he was shot and killed, and he did not want to leave. And then there was two others that were trapped in their house from being killed on that road, and
Just tethered there. Yep.
I was able to cross them over, and they went on. But that man, he did not want to leave. He was like, "No, I'm not leaving."
Yeah, and sometimes they just won't. I mean, sometimes, yeah. I mean, that's
And I was like, "You can't stay here because you're terrorizing this poor lady." And I ended up having to cleanse them out of the house. I got rid of them out of there,
yep,
or they're doing good.
yep. But I mean, and he still may be roaming this plane somewhere else, just
He's
not where
probably
you have
That's what I told her. I said, "He's not gonna physically leave. He'll leave
Yep.
that inside of the house, but he's gonna roam the outside."
And look for a way to get back in if you can get it. Yep.
Yep, and I put barriers out so they can't get back in. I
Excellent.
go
Yep.
outside of the house, the windows, the doors. I do all the corners of the house,
Yep.
the attic, crawl spaces, anything that they can see through, heat vents.
Yep. Seal it up for sure.
And that's where a lot of people mistake when they do their cleansings and stuff. They don't realize them things will hide in closets, heat vents, chimneys,
Oh, any opening they can find. Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be a total thing. It's you got to put that whole like a force field is how you have to treat it.
or it'll go up in the attic and they'll seal the attic shut and they'll trap it up in the attic, and then that barrier gets broke when you seal that attic door, and then there it is back down in again.
Yep.
We had a
Absolutely.
client that had a haunted china closet, and she wanted to cleanse it, and I told her you need to haul that thing outside to cleanse it. Well, they decided, oh, they were just going to open the glass sliding doors and leave it in, and they saged it and they smoked it out. Well, the thing decided it went up through the ceiling right into the daughter's room closet, and that's where it hid.
Yep. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, it's a total thing you got to do. You can't just half-ass it or just and that's what I was saying earlier. Like people just think they light sage and walk around. Well, I bought sage and I lit it and I walked around the house. Like that's not it. It's deeper than that. It's a more of a process for
And
sure.
your demonic stuff don't respond to sage.
No.
It,
Yeah.
it's up its game to that because too many
Yeah.
people use it. It
Yeah.
don't respond to
You
it.
gotta. That's a whole different spiritual cleansing that has to be done for that. But I mean, I think people just think that it's as simple as doing something like lighting sage, and it's not. It's a much more complicated thing.
And I mean,
And
they'll use white sage, and white sage is general cleansing, but
yeah, that's good for negative energies. Like if you've got bad vibes in the house, it's
yeah,
good for that, but it ain't going to do nothing for
no,
true.
not
true
coming.
heavy spirits. I mean, that's a whole different thing, or inhuman spirits, I should say.
And I've learned too with the demonic, it can do what it wants. It don't listen. You don't have to listen to you. It don't answer
Yeah.
to you.
Yep.
It was here before us, so
Ancient energies. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I think that people have a misconception of all of these things, and it's you. There's a lot to it. It's a lot deeper than people think. Um, yeah, sometimes those things work, depending on what you're dealing with. But
yep,
that's why I said earlier, I don't think any of us. I don't think that anybody in this field is that's true or genuine that calls himself an expert is that because none of us are.
no,
Um,
there's no
you know,
professional in this.
there's no experts, there's no professionals. The things that I'm talking about tonight, the things I think Russell's is talking about, is from personal experience. It's what we've learned
Yep,
through this process, and that's why it's so important to know that you don't have all the answers. I know I don't. If I run into a case that I know I can't handle, I've got that next level of people I'm going to talk to. If I run into something that I think is out of my wheelhouse, I may reach out to somebody like Russell and say, "Hey, man, you ever encountered this? What do you think?" I mean, I do that with people all the time that I've worked with or
yep,
that I know, and we help each other, and that's what it should be is helping us so we can help others, and that goes for the living and the dead. I mean, it goes for both. I mean, that goes for spirits as well. I think it's our obligation to help the spirits as much as it is to help the people. Not talking about demons and dark
yep.
inhumanities. I'm talking about human spirits, right? Hmm. I don't follow, and this is going to sound really coy, but I don't follow a lot of the YouTube stuff, and it's not because there isn't some great stuff out there, because there is. But here's the reason why. I full time am a firefighter, so I work many hours doing that. I have a production company where we're shooting some of our own content to put out. Let's see. Also, Matthew, same question, but are there any that I believe are totally fake, if you can say? Okay, yeah. So honestly, I don't follow a whole lot of them, but I'll come back to that part in a second. I'm going to say this, and the reason why is because of my schedule. Between the production company trying to film content for us, like the poster back here for the shameless plug for myself here, real quick. Um, we've got the documentary that's finally going to be releasing, the Field of Fears, the Haunting of Randolph County Asylum. Really great project. It was my team, it was JW Prather from IDC Devices. We actually wired up the 58,000 square foot asylum to do next level experiments. We did, real time spirit box stuff. We did a seance that went through the whole building. We did a lot of crazy stuff. We had Medium Skyray with us. We had Justin Spurrier from Spurrier Paranormal. So it was a really cool project that we did, and we spent 8 trips in total. We go into the asylum over multiple days and recording there and getting into the history of it. So and I'm saying that to say this, filming those projects, trying to put content together that we're going to put out eventually on streaming and streaming services on some of it. Some of it will be maybe YouTube content. Don't really have a lot of time or free time to watch a lot of that content. Same thing with paranormal television. I like it, but I don't even watch a whole lot of television because I stay so busy. So to answer your question, I will phrase it this way. Do I think that there are some great researchers out there that are putting stuff out? Yes. I think if you watch it and you see, not to bash these guys, but do you follow Paranormal Nightmare TV? No, not even familiar with them. Debunking a couple of their bids, like a case where no one was supposed to be in the house, but then you see, okay, yeah. So that's what I was getting ready to say. I think the simplest thing to do when I watch anything, whether it be paranormal television, whether it be YouTube, whether it be something on Facebook, number one, I'm not there, so I'm not gonna throw shade at somebody for their practices or methods. But I will say this: if I see something and I know that it doesn't look right, or it's countering what somebody else is doing or saying is supposed to be happening, then I have to question the legitimacy of that. But I can't say that there's any that I recommend or don't recommend, because honestly, I don't follow all that content. because between the stuff I just mentioned and the fact that we do at least 15 to 20 nights ourselves, plus we do road trips, plus we do residential cases, I don't have time to watch a lot of content. I'm busy making my own or actually out there in the field working, so or working my full time job.
I know who these guys are that he's talking about, but I don't really watch them either. I don't watch a lot of that YouTube. I mean, some of that YouTube stuff is a lot of it's for entertainment,
Absolutely.
and I I'm not in this for entertainment. I'm in it to help people.
Yep. Yep.
I don't
And to
really watch too much of
and
that.
further the research. That's why we do it.
Yep.
Is to get the answers.
I mean, the Foreman brothers, which is Paranormal Nightmare, they do a lot of residential for YouTube. But I don't know if how many clients for residential allow you want you to film that stuff in their house.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not gonna say they're faking stuff or I mean, some of the stuff I've seen they do is legit. I mean, they've got actual holy water, but a lot of these YouTubers are calling everything demons
Yeah.
and
Well, and you could tell that in the titles, right? Like you'll see the clickbait stuff. It's like, Billy Bob faces demon in dark
yeah,
dungeon, and it's just a clickbait thing, and you get in there, and it's nothing to do with that at all. And I think that word, and I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. I do think the word demon is thrown around. I'll answer that question in a second. I actually caught it there a second ago. I actually did cover that earlier, but I'll come back to that in a second. But I do think the word demon is thrown around a little too much. Like Russell was talking about, there are legitimate cases. I've been blessed and haven't encountered that to this point, but I think that word is a lot of times clickbait because people want, they see Hollywood movies and they want their life to be like the Hollywood movie or the experience to be like that. We even see this at events. People will come to our events and they're expecting all this crazy wild stuff to happen and books to fly off the shelf, and that stuff just doesn't often happen. It's usually much more subtle. The experiences are much more subtle. And I'll add this to the faking stuff. I've never understood why people have to do that for entertainment. I'm not saying it's a demon, but it's yeah, exactly. And so there's no reason to have to do that because if you do approach this legitimately, there are so many experiences that happen that you don't need to waste time with silliness because there's so much legitimate stuff that happens and it's crazy and it's a crazy thing. To answer your earlier question, how they get into this, I won't tell the whole story again, but I will simply say that I went most of my adult life without having an experience, and then I had a experience that to this day I've only seen one other apparition that even came close to the one that started my journey. Um, but yeah, so it's not something I was brought up in or around. It was something that just happened to me, and here I am.
and for his like with the Foreman brothers putting demon, they do that just to get viewers. That's
Yeah,
basically because of with the demon word thrown around, people are actually believing, hey, there's an actual demon, so we need to watch this video. Watch somebody get possessed or thrown across the room or what have you.
yeah, for sure. And I think that's the sad. I think that's a sad thing that we've I think that's a sad thing that's happened in paranormal. I guess I'll say something negative for just a second. I think there's too much of that. There's too much competition. There's too much of I want to be famous or this or that. Um, it just to me, we need to get back to what it's about, and that's helping one another and helping people.
Yep.
And I think there needs to be a lot less drama and a lot more research in paranormal than sometimes there is, unfortunately.
Yeah, if they spend more time researching as they do with the drama, they'd actually get something accomplished. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
people out there cutting each other's throats, bashing people. We've been hit with it
Oh
several
yeah.
times, and
If you're in this any length of time, you're gonna get hit with that, and you're gonna have
that,
people challenge what you do.
that's
That's just
what I was
part of it.
telling the new investigator that's fairly new. I said, the more you get your name out there, you start getting noticed and well known, the more
Yep.
you're going to get bashed if you're fake, you got an ego, you lie to make yourself look good, or you're showing off for your friends and
Yep.
family.
For me, and this is our take as a team. We don't believe anything about anybody until we work with them ourselves. If we choose to work with them, very selective who we partner with or collab with, but we don't ever. You'll never see us bashing people because we don't do it. If we have thoughts, those are kept internal because it's just it
Right.
does not help the paranormal if we sit here and start calling each other out. I don't think that my methods or our methods are the only methods. It's what's works for us for the last 20 years. Doesn't mean it's going to work for Russell. He may have different methods than me, and that's perfectly okay. As long as our intention is to be truthful and genuine, it doesn't really matter.
And we all learn from each other. That's what we're supposed to.
That is a fantastic question. And the answer to that question is ancient Egypt. I would love to get to roam around the pyramids and try to connect with stuff that's 3,000 years old. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be neat.
to me, that would be one of the coolest places in the world, or even like Stonehenge. Either of those locations would absolutely blow my socks off. I just, even if nothing happened, just getting to investigate either of those locations would absolutely be amazing.
Yeah, and I'm sure Egypt's got a lot of good paranormal activity. For
My
sure.
wife loves Egypt stuff. She's always watching documentaries, and she's watching it for the stuff about the history. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I would love to get in there and try to read that or investigate that, or
Right.
set up an experiment in that tomb. That's where
Right.
my mind goes.
But we hit our 2 hour mark. If anybody wants to get a hold of you for Paracons,
Yeah, so www.srsparanormal.com usually has everything that we're doing. It's also where you'll find all the stuff for Shadowwork Productions, my production company. The trailer for the film is there. The trailer we did or the teaser we did for the event at the Euro Shrine. We are filming a series. Don't have a home for that yet, but we will later this year. Actually going to come out as a documentary part first, and then we will be transferring it over to a series of some sort, and it's involving some true crime stuff, and it's mediums working together doing this stuff instead of just separate from the researchers. So a little different spin on things, and I think people are going to enjoy it. So we're excited about that. Question: is there a place you'd absolutely refuse to investigate, no matter how much money you'd be offered? Wow. Well, I've never been offered money to investigate places. I always spend money to investigate places. Gosh, that I absolutely would not. Probably not. There's nothing that pops off in my head that I would say I would absolutely not go there. Would I maybe have to do a lot more preparation before I went? Would I maybe have to do some soul searching to get myself in the right place to go? Absolutely. But I don't know that there's a place that I wouldn't go.
oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you. Yes.
Thank you
Yeah.
for tuning in each week.
Absolutely enjoyed the show. And you can also follow us on our social medias. Matthew Sorge SRS on just about every platform. So all of my people have their bios and their backgrounds and their social media. So we'd love to have you follow us and check us out on Facebook as well, SRS Paranormal Fans. Yeah, it's been great. I've really enjoyed being on here, Russell. It's been a good show.
Oh, you're welcome. If you want to hang backstage for a second, I'm going to close
Absolutely.
the show out and I'll be right back with you.
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming on tonight, and
All right.
we'll
Thank you,
definitely
everybody, for tuning in.
we'll definitely do a part two.
I'd love to.
I'll see you in a few minutes.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. I got some guest appearances that I'm going to be on some podcasts tomorrow night. I will be on EPP podcast at 5 o'clock Central Time. It will be live on Rumble and Apple Podcast. I know she has it on there as well. So tune in tomorrow night at 5 Central and bring your questions. You get to pick my brain on the paranormal. Another guest appearance, I will be on the 14th. I will be on Southern Fried Paranormals podcast. And then I will be on one March 26th. The details are all on my Facebook page. And then I will be booked April 20th for another podcast. And I'll have the details out when I get them. So we will see you all next week. Same time, same channel. Next week, guest is Rick, the owner of Your Shrine and Tennessee Shadow Chasers, will be on with Rick as well. We'll be talking about the shrine, some of the dark history. So be sure to tune in next week, and we will see you again next week. God bless. Stay safe out there. Stay humble, and see you again. And we're